Ambassador Velth stood in front of the large display screen in her office. Her long fingers moved across the controls as she checked the latest reports. She was a Thalore, a species known for their attention to detail and love of order. For 200 years, her people had been part of the Galactic Council, helping to keep peace among the stars. Today was supposed to be a normal day. She was doing her usual work, checking on the younger species that the Council was watching. These species were kept in quarantine zones until they were ready to join galactic society. It was a good system. It had worked for thousands of years, but something was wrong. Velth stopped moving. Her eyes focused on one line in the report. The quarantine beacon around Earth had stopped working. When did it stop? She checked the date. 30 years ago, 30 years. How did nobody notice this for 30 years? She opened the detailed files about Earth. The planet was home to humans, a young species discovered about 200 years ago. The Council had decided to watch them from far away. Humans were interesting but violent. They fought wars. They damaged their own planet. The Council agreed they needed more time to grow up before meeting other species. Velth sent a message to the monitoring station near Earth's system. She waited for an answer. 1 hour passed, then 2. Finally, the response came back. It was short and strange. We cannot locate Earth. The third planet is gone. Please advise. Velth read the message 3 times. A planet could not just disappear. She grabbed her coat and headed to the transport station. She needed to see this herself. 2 days later, Velth arrived at the edge of the Sol system. That was what humans called their home system. She looked out the window of her ship. The sun was still there. The other planets were still there. But where Earth should have been, there was nothing. Just empty space. No, not empty. Her sensors picked up something. There were machines everywhere. Thousands of them. They floated near the sun, doing something to it. Velth moved her ship closer. The machines were harvesting the star. They were taking material from the sun itself and processing it. This was very advanced technology. Too advanced for a species that was supposed to be in quarantine. Her communication system made a sound. Someone was calling her ship. She answered it. A human face appeared on the screen. It was a woman with dark hair and calm eyes. She smiled. Hello, I am Captain Kim Ji-won of the mining vessel Prosperity. Can I help you? Velth took a moment to find her words. I am Ambassador Velth of the Galactic Council. I need to know what happened to Earth. Where is your planet? Ji-won nodded slowly. Earth is safe. We moved it about 30 years ago. We needed to harvest our sun for resources, so we relocated the planet first. It took a long time, but we finished the move successfully. You moved an entire planet? Velth could not believe what she was hearing. Yes, we used gravitational tugs. It took about 40 years of preparation, and 20 years to complete the actual move. We relocated Earth to a different system about 15 light-years from here. The new location has better resources and more room for growth. Velth felt her mind spinning. But you were in quarantine. You were not supposed to leave your system. You were not supposed to have this kind of technology. Ji-won's smile did not change. We followed all the rules, Ambassador. The quarantine said we could not make contact with other species. It said nothing about moving within our own space. We developed this technology ourselves. We did not break any laws. How many systems do you have now? Velth asked. She was afraid of the answer. Currently, 847 systems have human settlements. We have been expanding carefully and quietly. We did not want to bother the Council until we were ready. 847 systems. Velth felt cold. The quarantine was supposed to keep humans in one system. Instead, they had built an empire, and nobody had noticed. This is illegal, Velth said. You have violated Council law. You must stop all expansion immediately. Ji-won tilted her head. Ambassador, I think there is a misunderstanding. We checked the laws very carefully. The quarantine prohibited contact and interference. It did not prohibit movement or growth. We also left our quarantine zone 30 years ago, exactly as scheduled. The beacon was set to turn off after the quarantine period ended. We have not been in quarantine for 3 decades. Velth pulled up the quarantine documents on her screen. She read through them quickly. Her heart sank. Ji-won was right. The quarantine was supposed to last exactly 200 years. Then the species would be reviewed for Council membership. The automatic beacon would turn off. But nobody had checked. Nobody had reviewed humanity. Nobody had even noticed. We will need to discuss this with the Council, Velth said quietly. Of course. We would be happy to talk with the council. We have actually been hoping to open formal communications for some time now. Please let us know when they are ready to meet." Jiwon smiled again. That calm smile that never changed. Velth ended the call. She sat in her chair for a long time, just thinking. Then she turned her ship around and headed back to council space. 3 weeks later, Velth stood before the full council. All 17 member species were present. She gave her report. She showed them the evidence. She explained how humanity had expanded to almost 1,000 systems while the council was looking the other way. The council chamber was silent when she finished. Then the shouting began. "This is unacceptable. How do we not know? They must be stopped. This is a threat to the entire galaxy." The council voted that same day. The vote was unanimous. Humanity was officially banned from any further expansion. They were ordered to stop all colonization. They were forbidden from establishing any new settlements. The council would send enforcement fleets to make sure humans obeyed. Velth watched the vote with satisfaction. Order would be restored. The law would be enforced. Everything would return to normal. She went back to her office feeling proud of her work. She sat down and opened her computer to finish some paperwork. A new message appeared on her screen. It was a report from the monitoring division. They had finally completed a full survey of human space. Velth opened it. The report said that in the 3 weeks since she had visited the Sol system, humanity had established settlements in 73 additional systems. 73 systems in 3 weeks. Velth stared at the number. She read it again to make sure she understood correctly. Then she understood. The ban had just passed. The enforcement fleets were being prepared. The council was making plans. But humanity was not waiting. They were not slowing down. They had never stopped. The massive screens in the council chamber showed the same message in 17 different languages. The message was clear and simple. Humanity was banned from expanding. They must stop building new colonies. They must stop taking resources from new systems. They must obey council law or face military action. The message was broadcast across the entire galaxy. Every species heard it. Every news outlet reported it. The Galactic Council had spoken. Admiral Lee Hyagen sat in her command chair on the bridge of the warship Eternal Justice. She was Kryn, a species known for military excellence. She had served in the Council Enforcement Fleet for 60 years. She had never failed a mission. This mission seemed simple. Travel to the largest cluster of human colonies. Deliver the Council's orders. If humans refuse to obey, use force. Hijin did not expect any trouble. Young species always tested the rules at first, but when they saw the Council's power, they always backed down. Her fleet consisted of 20 warships. It was more than enough to handle any resistance. The fleet jumped to faster than light speed and headed toward human space. Meanwhile, in an office on Earth's new location, Director Choi Dae-ho read the Council's ban. He was an old man now, 78 years old. He had worked in human colonial administration for 50 years. He had helped plan the expansion from the very beginning. He read the ban carefully. Then he read it again. Then he smiled. It was a tired smile. He had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Choi opened his communication system and sent a message to all human colonies. The message was short. It said, "Continue operations as planned. Use Protocol 7.Protocol 7. Every human administrator knew what that meant. It meant follow the law exactly. Every single word, every single rule. But also, remember that laws have specific meanings. If something is not specifically forbidden, it is allowed." 2 weeks later, Admiral Hyagen's fleet arrived at the human colony cluster. She expected to find illegal military bases. She expected to find weapons. She expected resistance. Instead, she found families. She found farms. She found schools and hospitals. She found cities full of ordinary people living ordinary lives. Her sensors showed no weapons, no military installations, no armies. The colonial governor sent her a message. Would she like to come down to the planet? They were having a festival. There would be food. She was welcome to join them. Hyagen was confused. This was not how young species usually reacted to council enforcement fleets. She sent a formal message demanding that the colony surrender and prepare for council oversight. The governor replied immediately. Surrender? They were not at war. Oversight? They would be happy to host council inspectors. Would the Admiral like to come for dinner instead of lunch? The evening weather was very nice this time of year. Back at Council headquarters, Velth received Admiral Heejin's first reports. The reports were strange. Humans were not resisting. They were not fighting. They were just continuing with their normal lives. They seemed completely unconcerned about the ban. Then Director Choi's official response arrived. Velth opened it with curiosity. The document was 47 pages long. It was written in perfect Council standard language. It was formatted according to all proper protocols. The response acknowledged the Council's authority. It thanked them for their guidance. It expressed humanity's deep respect for galactic law. Then it pointed out several problems with the ban. First, the ban said humans could not establish new colonies, but the document explained that humans were not establishing colonies. They were establishing research stations. According to Council law, research stations were different from colonies. Research stations were allowed. Second, the ban said humans could not extract resources from new systems. But humans were not extracting resources. They were conducting resource monitoring and analysis. This was scientific research. Scientific research was protected by Council law. Third, the ban said humans could not participate in galactic trade. But humans were not trading. They were engaging in cultural exchange programs with other species. These programs happened to involve the transfer of goods and materials. But this was education, not trade. Education was encouraged by Council law. The document included detailed legal citations. It referenced 600 years of Council precedent. It quoted from the Council Charter. It was thorough, careful, and completely correct. Velth felt her frustration growing. She called an emergency Council meeting. The Council reviewed the human response. The legal experts confirmed that the humans were technically correct. Everything they were doing was legal under current Council law. They had found loopholes, lots of loopholes. The Council spent 3 days debating new regulations. They wrote new definitions. Colony now meant any permanent settlement of more than 100 people. Resource extraction now included monitoring and analysis. Trade now included any exchange of goods, even educational exchanges. They sent these new regulations to humanity with satisfaction. The loopholes were closed. The human response arrived 2 days later. It was another document. This one was 47,000 pages long. The document explained in careful detail why the new definitions violated Council precedent. It showed how the changes would affect 137 other species. It demonstrated that the new rules contradicted 15 different sections of the Council Charter. The document included translations into all 17 Council languages. It had a detailed index. It had footnotes. It had citations for every single claim. It was professionally formatted and easy to read. Some Council members thought the helpful formatting seemed almost insulting. Ambassador Han Sora walked through the halls of Council headquarters with a warm smile. She was young for an ambassador, only 42 years old. But she had studied galactic politics since she was a child. She knew the name of every Council member. She knew their voting patterns. She knew what they cared about. Today was her first formal meeting with the full Council. She was there to present humanity's membership application. She carried a small data device with all the necessary documents. She had checked everything 3 times. Everything was perfect. The Council chamber was impressive. It was built to show power and authority. The seats for Council members rose in a circle around a central platform. That platform was where Sora would stand to make her presentation. She took her position. The lights focused on her. 17 species watched her with varying degrees of suspicion and curiosity. Sora began her presentation. She spoke clearly and simply. She explained why humanity wanted to join the Council. She showed evidence of human contributions to galactic knowledge. She demonstrated that humans were ready to be responsible members of galactic society. A senator named Crix interrupted her. Crix was from a species that valued order and tradition above everything else. She did not like humanity. She did not trust them. Your species violated quarantine, Crix said. Her voice was cold. You expanded without permission. You ignored Council authority. Why should we trust you now? Sora nodded respectfully. Senator, we followed the quarantine exactly as it was written. The quarantine lasted 200 years. After 200 years, it ended automatically. We did not violate anything. We simply continued growing after the quarantine period was over. You should have waited for council approval, Crix insisted. The law does not require that we wait, Sora replied. She pulled up a copy of council law on the chamber's main screen. Section 412 states that after a quarantine ends, a species may engage in normal activities until they are either accepted or rejected for membership. We are engaging in normal activities. We have been doing so legally for 30 years. The council members looked at each other. They knew she was right. They had written those laws. They just never expected anyone to actually read them so carefully. The meeting continued for 6 hours. Every time a council member raised an objection, Sora had an answer. Every time someone claimed humans broke a rule, she showed them the exact wording of that rule and explained why humans had followed it correctly. She was always polite. She never argued. She never got angry. She just calmly presented facts and legal references. While Sora was dealing with the council, Director Choi was working in his office on a quiet colony world. His office was small and plain. He did not need anything fancy. He just needed computers and communication systems. Reports came in from all over human space. The reports told him about new settlements being built. They told him about resource operations. They told him about trade agreements and cultural exchanges and research projects. Choi read each report carefully. He made notes. He sent instructions. He coordinated everything. This was his job. He had been doing it for decades. He was good at it. Someone knocked on his door. It was Park Minho, one of the senior engineers. Minho looked worried. Director, the council is investigating our expansion rate. They are asking how we can build settlements so quickly. Choi smiled his tired smile. Tell them the truth. We use modular construction. We prepare everything in advance. We have mobile construction teams that can set up basic infrastructure in 2 weeks. Everything we do is efficient because we planned it carefully. Should we slow down? Minho asked. Why? We are not breaking any laws. Continue as planned. Back at council headquarters, Councillor Thrain was having a private meeting with Velth. Thrain was troubled. He had been investigating humanity for months now. The more he learned, the more concerned he became. But not for the reasons Velth expected. I do not think humans are a threat, Thrain said quietly. Velth stared at him. They have expanded to over 1,000 systems without permission. How is that not a threat? They had permission. We gave it to them when we wrote the quarantine laws. We just did not think about what would happen after the quarantine ended. That is our failure, not theirs. But they are changing everything, Velth protested. Yes, because everything needed to change. The council has become lazy. We assume all species will behave the same way. We assume everyone will wait for permission before doing anything. Humans showed us that following the rules does not mean doing what we expect. It means doing what the rules actually say. Velth did not want to hear this. She had spent years trying to stop humanity. She did not want to believe that maybe she was wrong. Admiral Hyjin sent another report to the council. She had now visited 20 human colonies. She had found no military threats, no weapons factories, no invasion fleets, just ordinary people living ordinary lives. But her report included a warning. She wrote, humans are not preparing for war. They are preparing for everything else. Every colony has backup systems. Every settlement has multiple power sources. Every community has stored resources. They do not trust that things will stay good, so they prepare for things to go bad. This makes them very hard to threaten or intimidate. The council met again to discuss what to do. Senator Crix proposed military intervention. She wanted to force humans to stop expanding. Other council members were not sure. Military action against a species that was not actually breaking any laws seemed wrong. Then they received new information. Over the past 3 months, humans had established trade relationships with 40% of council member species. Not illegal trade. Cultural exchanges, educational programs, research collaborations. All technically allowed under council law. More troubling, many of these species were happy with the arrangements. Humans shared technology freely. They helped with engineering problems. They were reliable partners. Several species had sent letters to the council asking them to approve human membership. The council realized they had a problem. If they rejected humanity's membership application, they would anger 40% of their own members. If they approved it, they would legitimize everything humanity had done. Either way, they could not win. Sora continued her work. She met with council members privately. She listened to their concerns. She answered their questions. She never pushed. She never demanded. She just presented information and let them think about it. One day, Counselor Thrain asked her directly, "Did humans plan all of this from the beginning?" Sora thought about the question carefully before answering. "We did not know exactly what would happen. We could not predict the future. But we prepared for many possibilities. We knew the council was watching us. We knew they would eventually pay attention, so we made sure that when that day came, we would be ready. We would know the laws. We would have good relationships with other species. We would have done nothing wrong." "That is not the same as planning," Thrain observed. "No, it is preparation. Humans learned long ago that we cannot control what happens to us, but we can prepare for different outcomes. We can be ready. That is what we do." The membership vote was scheduled for 3 months away. The council needed time to review everything. During those 3 months, humanity continued expanding. They added 200 more systems, all properly documented, all following the rules. Then, one day before the vote, every council member received a gift. It was a survey of unclaimed systems beyond council space. The surveys showed locations of resources. They showed habitable planets. They showed safe routes for travel. The surveys had been conducted by human explorers over the past 30 years. They represented thousands of hours of work. They were detailed, accurate, and valuable, and humans were giving them away for free. No payment requested, no trade demanded. Just a gift, the message was clear. Humans had been exploring beyond council space while the council was busy trying to stop them. They had already found new territory, new resources, new opportunities. The council could accept humans as members and gain some influence over their activities, or they could reject humans and watch them expand beyond reach entirely. The choice was obvious, but it did not feel like a choice. It felt like humans had been leading them to this point all along. The council chamber was full. Every seat was taken. Observers from hundreds of species filled the viewing galleries. News cameras from across the galaxy recorded everything. This vote would change history. Ambassador Sora sat in the applicant section. She looked calm. She had reviewed her notes one last time that morning. Everything was prepared. Now she just had to wait. Velth sat in the diplomatic gallery. She watched Sora with mixed feelings. Part of her still believed humanity was dangerous. Part of her had begun to doubt. She had spent months fighting this moment. Now it was finally here. The High Chancellor entered the chamber. His name was Vorn. He was very old even by council standards. He had led the council for 200 years. He remembered when humanity was first discovered. Vorn took his seat. The chamber became quiet. He spoke in a deep, calm voice. "Today we vote on humanity's application for council membership. This is not a simple decision. This species has challenged our systems. They have tested our laws. They have shown us weaknesses in our own rules, but they have also followed those rules more carefully than any species in council history." He paused. "Before we vote, we will hear arguments. Senator Crix will speak against the application. Councillor Thrain will speak in favor. Then we will hear from a human witness. After that, I will share my own thoughts. Then we will vote." Senator Crix stood. She looked angry. She began speaking immediately. "This species has shown contempt for council authority. They expanded without waiting for approval. They manipulated our laws. They built an empire while we were not paying attention. If we accept them as members, we tell every other species that breaking the spirit of the law is acceptable as long as you follow the letter of the law. This sets a terrible precedent." Crix continued for 20 minutes. She presented evidence of human expansion. She showed how many systems they controlled. She argued that this was aggressive behavior that should be punished, not rewarded. When she finished, Councillor Thrain stood. He spoke more quietly than Crix, but his words carried weight. "Senator Crix says humans broke the spirit of the law. But who decides what the spirit of the law is? We have written rules. Those rules have specific meanings. Humans followed those rules exactly. If we do not like the results, we should change the rules. But we cannot punish someone for doing what the rules allow." He looked around the chamber. "Humans have shown us something important. They have shown us that we have become lazy. We assume everyone will interpret laws the same way we do. We assume everyone will wait for permission before acting. Humans did not make these assumptions. They read what we wrote, not what we meant, and they showed us that there is a difference. Maybe we need members who take our laws seriously. Maybe we need members who study the rules carefully. Maybe humanity is exactly what this council needs. After Thrain sat down, a human was called to testify. Her name was Professor Kang Seojin. She was a xenoanthropologist who had lived among 5 different alien species. She understood how different cultures thought. She walked to the center platform. She did not look nervous. She began speaking in a clear, steady voice. Many people think humans are aggressive. They look at our expansion and see conquest. But that is not what drives us. What drives us is fear. The chamber was very quiet now. Everyone was listening. Humans are afraid of extinction. We have almost died out many times in our history. Ice ages, diseases, wars, environmental collapse. Every time we barely survived. This fear lives in our culture. It shapes how we think. It makes us prepare for disasters. It makes us plan for the worst. When you put all your people on one planet, you risk everything. One asteroid, one disease, one environmental disaster. Everything could end. So we spread out, we build multiple colonies, we make backup plans, not because we want to conquer, because we want to survive. We studied your laws because we needed to know the rules of this galaxy. We followed them carefully because we did not want to make enemies. We expanded quickly because we cannot assume we will have time later. This is who we are. We prepare. We persist. We survive. Professor Kang paused. Then she said something that surprised everyone. If you reject us, we will understand. We will continue following your laws. We will continue working with species who want to work with us. We will continue expanding because we must. But we would prefer to do all of this as members of the council. We would prefer to work together. The choice is yours. She sat down. The chamber remained quiet for a long moment. Then High Chancellor Vorn stood. He rarely spoke during votes. When he did, people listened. 200 years ago, when we first discovered humanity, I recommended immediate contact. I thought they were ready. The council disagreed. They chose quarantine. I accepted that decision. But I always wondered what would have happened if we had talked to them sooner. Now I know. If we had talked to them sooner, we would have learned sooner that they study everything carefully. We would have learned that they prepare thoroughly. We would have learned that they do not break rules, they master them. This situation is our own fault. We ignored them for 200 years. We assumed they would wait quietly. We did not check on them. When their quarantine ended, we did not review them as we should have. We failed to do our job. Now we complain that they did theirs too well. Vorn looked directly at Senator Crix, then at the other council members who opposed humanity. I will vote to accept humanity as members. I will do so because they have earned it. They have followed our laws. They have built relationships with our members. They have contributed to galactic knowledge. They have done everything we ask of new members. If we reject them, we reject them for being too successful. That would be unjust. The vote began. Each council member stated their decision aloud. The results appeared on the main screen. In favor, 9 votes, against 7 votes, abstaining 1 vote. The application was approved. Humanity was now a provisional member of the Galactic Council. Ambassador Sora stood and bowed respectfully to the council. She spoke briefly, thanking them for this opportunity. She promised cooperation and partnership. She said all the right things. Senator Crix walked out of the chamber without speaking to anyone. She was furious. She believed the council had made a terrible mistake. Belt sat in her seat long after everyone else had left. She felt strange. She had fought so hard to stop this. Now it had happened anyway. She did not know what to do next. Finally, she made a decision. She requested a transfer. She wanted to work in human territory. If she could not stop them, maybe she could understand them. Admiral Hyejin also requested a new assignment. She would become the military liaison to human space. She had learned that humans were not a military problem. They were something else. Something her training had not prepared her for. She wanted to learn more. Within weeks of the vote, something interesting happened. Humanity revealed the true number of systems they controlled. Not 1,200 systems. 3,800 systems. The difference was in how they defined things. They had reported official colonies. They had not reported personal habitats, research stations, and temporary settlements. All of those were also human territory. All of them were legal under the membership terms they had negotiated. The council realized they had been negotiating with someone who understood the rules better than they did. 6 months after the vote, Ambassador Sora met privately with High Chancellor Vorn. He had requested the meeting. They sat in his office, which was quiet and comfortable. "I have a question," Vorn said. "I want an honest answer." Sora nodded. "I will do my best. Was all of this planned? Did humanity know from the beginning how everything would happen?" Sora smiled. It was a genuine smile, not her diplomatic one. "No. We could not know what would happen. We could not predict your reactions. We could not plan for every possibility. But we could prepare. We could study your laws. We could learn your languages. We could build good relationships. We could make sure that when you finally noticed us, we would be ready for whatever came next." She leaned forward slightly. "Humans do not plan centuries in advance. We are not that clever, but we prepare for possibilities. We practice for different outcomes. We make sure we have options. That is our strength. Not planning, preparation." Vorn nodded slowly. He understood now. Humanity's advantage was not intelligence or technology or military power. It was patience and preparation. It was the willingness to spend decades getting ready for a single moment, and that moment had come. Humanity was now part of the galactic community. The Council would never be the same. 5 years had passed since the vote. The Galactic Council looked different now. The Council chamber had been redesigned. Human architects had suggested improvements for better sound and better information displays. The meetings now included translation into 200 languages instead of 40. Everything worked more efficiently. Senator Crix watched these changes with anger. She believed this was exactly what she had warned about. Humans were remaking everything to match their own ideas, but she could not deny that the changes worked. The Council was more effective than it had been in centuries. Humanity now controlled 12,000 systems. Every single system was properly registered. Every single settlement followed Council regulations. The regulations had been rewritten to accommodate human expansion methods, but they still counted as proper regulations. Other species had started copying human methods. The Thaler began their own multi-generation colonization program. The Kryn reformed their military to use distributed defense strategies. Even Senator Crix's people had started using legal frameworks that humans had pioneered. The galaxy was more active than it had been in thousands of years. Species that had been confined for centuries were now expanding legally. The Council's role had changed from enforcement to coordination. They helped species work together instead of trying to control everything. Ambassador Velth had changed too. She now represented humanity to species that were suspicious of them. Her journey from opponent to supporter was seen as proof that humans could be trusted. She was writing a book about her experiences. The title was The Species That Read the Manual. Admiral Heejan commanded a joint task force now. Her fleet included both human and council ships. They explored beyond known space together. She had learned to appreciate human methods. Thorough preparation followed by careful action. Her fleet had discovered 40 new habitable systems using techniques humans had developed. Councillor Thrain had become Vice-Chancellor. He was working on major reforms. Many people credited human influence for these changes, but Thrain insisted the Council was simply living up to its own ideals. His partnership with Ambassador Sora had become famous in diplomatic circles. Captain Kim Ji-won had retired from stellar harvesting. She now taught engineering at the Galactic Technical Institute. This was a human-funded university that trained students from all Council species. Her opening lecture was always the same. The universe does not care about your plans. Have backup plans for your backup plans. Director Choi still worked from his small office on a quiet colony world. His official title was now Administrator of Human Expansion Coordination. When people asked him about humanity's incredible growth, he always gave the same answer. We are not growing fast. We are growing carefully. There is a difference. Ambassador Sora had become the youngest High Ambassador in Council history. She was known for finding agreement where none seemed possible. Critics said she manipulated people. Supporters said she simply understood that everyone wants something, and good diplomacy is finding where those wants overlap. Then a new crisis appeared. A species called the Vren was discovered at the edge of the galaxy. They were expanding aggressively. They were taking systems without asking permission. They did not care about Council authority. They reminded many people of what they had feared humanity would become. The Council met to discuss what to do. Senator Crix saw an opportunity. She demanded military action against the Vren. She also suggested that humanity should lead that action. This would prove humans were loyal to the Council. It would also show other species that humans could be aggressive when needed. Many Council members agreed with her plan. But Ambassador Sora surprised everyone. She recommended patience. She said the Vren should be offered the same opportunities humanity had received. Time to learn. Resources to study. A path to legitimate membership. The Council was skeptical. The Vren seemed violent and unreasonable. They seemed nothing like humanity. Director Choi was called to testify before the Council. He traveled to Council headquarters for the first time in 5 years. He brought detailed reports about the Vren. Human scouts have been watching the Vren for decades, he explained. We do this with all newly discovered species. We study them. We try to understand them. And we have learned something important about the Vren. He displayed images on the main screen. The Vren are not aggressive by nature. They are desperate. Their home star is dying. They are expanding because they need to survive. They are acting exactly like humanity did when we first started colonizing. The difference is that we had time to prepare. They do not. The Council members looked at each other. This changed things. Ambassador Velth proposed a radical solution. Assign humanity to mentor the Vren. If anyone understood desperate expansion, it was humans. If humans could teach the Vren to work within Council systems, it would prove humanity's value even to their strongest critics. The Council debated for 2 days. Finally, they approved the plan. Humanity would make contact with the Vren. They would offer help. They would try to bring the Vren into galactic society peacefully. The first meeting between humans and Vren was tense. The Vren were suspicious. They did not trust the Council. They did not trust anyone offering help. They believed everyone wanted to stop them from surviving. Captain Jiwon came out of retirement for this mission. She sat across from the Vren leaders in a neutral space station. She did not smile. She did not try to be friendly. She just told them the truth. Your star is dying. You need new homes. You are taking systems by force because you do not know another way. We understand this. Our star was dying too. We were desperate too. We expanded quickly because we had to survive. She showed them records of Earth's relocation. She showed them humanity's early expansion. She explained how humans had found a way to survive without making enemies. You can do the same. We can help you. But you need to slow down. You need to follow the rules. And you need to trust that other species will work with you if you work with them. The Vren listened. They did not agree immediately. They needed to think. They needed to discuss among themselves. A week later, they agreed to let human engineers survey their home system. The engineers, led by Park Min-ho, analyzed the dying star. Then they presented a solution. They could stabilize the star. It would take decades. It would require advanced technology, but it would work. Humanity had developed this technology during their own stellar harvesting programs. They would share it with the Vren. In exchange, the Vren had to slow their expansion. They had to follow Council guidelines. They had to work within the system. Chief strategist Yoon Ji-hoon presented them with a 50-year plan. It was detailed. It was achievable. It looked exactly like the plans humanity had used for their own expansion. The Vren studied it carefully. They agreed. Not because they trusted the Council, but because the humans understood their desperation. Humans had been where they were. Humans knew what it felt like to face extinction. Humans could help them survive. Within a year, Vren expansion slowed dramatically. Within 3 years, they submitted their own application for Council membership. The application was well formatted. It included all required documentation. It followed precedents established by humanity. Senator Crix finally admitted that maybe she had been wrong about humanity. They were not conquerors. They were teachers. They were survivors helping other survivors. She did not like it, but she could not deny the results. In a private conversation with Ambassador Sora, Crix asked, "Did you plan this too? Did you know the Vren would appear?" Sora smiled. "No, we did not know. But we prepared for the possibility that we might meet someone like us someday. Someone desperate, someone trying to survive. We knew that if that day came, we would want to help. Because we remember what it was like." High Chancellor Vorn announced his retirement. He was satisfied. The Council was stronger than when he had taken office. In his final speech, he thanked humanity for an important lesson. He said, Rules exist to serve people, not the other way around. Humanity reminded us of this. We should never forget it. 20 years after the ban that failed to stop them, humanity held a celebration. The location was Earth, which they had moved back to its original system after the harvesting was complete. Representatives from 50 species attended the celebration. Children played in parks. Admiral Heejin gave a toast to the exploration crew still working in deep space. Director Choi received a Lifetime Achievement Award. He accepted it with his usual modesty. Ambassador Sora stood on Earth and looked up at the stars. Those stars were now shared with dozens of other species. She received a message from the frontier. Human scouts had detected another unknown civilization far beyond Council space. They were requesting instructions. She sent back a simple message. Follow first contact protocols. Offer help if they need it, and whatever you do not assume they will think like we do. Be patient. Be thorough. Be ready. In his small office, Director Choi reviewed the latest data. Humanity now had 47,000 inhabited systems. The Council had expanded to 30 member species. The galaxy was more prosperous than ever. The number of legal disputes had increased by 10,000%. He filed the reports. Then he opened a new folder. It was labeled, Long-Term Strategic Planning, Next 500 Years.